Headlines flash in Times Square, the heart of New York City, where the world's attention is captured in a constant stream of breaking news. The city pulses with energy as urgent headlines scroll across giant billboards, each update reflecting the latest tremors in global politics and economics. Half a world away on Mumbai's Dalal Street, the mood is tense. News tickers outside the stock exchange blare the same story. The United States has slapped a staggering 50% tariff on Indian goods, sending shockwaves through the financial district. Traders and analysts scramble to make sense of the sudden escalation as the implications ripple through the Indian economy. In Washington, President Trump's advisors gather in the Oval Office, framing the dispute not just as a matter of trade, but as a moral stand. They argue that India's continued purchases of Russian oil undermine American interests, fueling a narrative of betrayal and deepening mistrust between the two democracies. MAGA influencers and right-wing commentators seize the moment, amplifying the rhetoric on social media and at rallies. What began as a complex geopolitical issue is quickly transformed into a cultural clash, with slogans and hashtags turning public opinion into a battleground. In New Delhi, the response is swift and defiant. Prime Minister Modi stands before massive crowds, invoking the spirit of Atmanirbhar Bharat, a call for self-reliance and national pride. His speeches strike a chord, rallying citizens to stand firm against foreign pressure and to support homegrown industries. Indian media outlets and advertisers join the campaign, urging consumers to boycott American brands and embrace Indian alternatives. The Russian oil deal is reframed as a pragmatic, necessary policy, one that protects India's interests in a turbulent world. The partnership that was once celebrated as a model for the future now appears fractured. Tariffs rise, diplomatic meetings are cancelled, and delegations depart empty conference rooms, leaving behind a war of words and growing resentment. This is no mere diplomatic spat. It marks a fundamental divergence of interests, redrawing the map of global alliances. As the world watches, the choices made in Washington and New Delhi today will shape international relations for years, perhaps decades to come. The Trump administration's 50% tariff on Indian exports effective August 2025 is a sledgehammer to a $212 billion trading relationship. This move has sent shockwaves through the global trade community, raising questions about the future of US-India economic ties. The tariff is seen as a drastic measure that could potentially unravel years of economic cooperation and mutual growth. Businesses on both sides of the ocean are bracing for impact, with many fearing a significant downturn in trade activities. The stakes are high, and the repercussions could be far-reaching, affecting not just the economies of the two nations, but also the global market dynamics. Officially, it's about the trade deficit and India's tariff king status. But the real flashpoint is India's continued purchase of Russian oil. This has become a contentious issue, with the US viewing it as a direct challenge to its geopolitical stance. The energy trade between Russia and India has grown significantly, making it a critical component of India's energy security strategy. The US, however, sees this as undermining its efforts to isolate Russia economically. The complexity of this issue lies in the intertwining of economic interests and geopolitical strategies, making it a multifaceted challenge for policymakers. The White House claims India is enabling Moscow's war in Ukraine, demanding alignment with Western sanctions. This stance has put India in a difficult position as it tries to balance its strategic autonomy with the pressures from the West. The US administration's narrative is clear. Any support to Russia, even indirectly through energy purchases, is seen as a threat to the collective efforts to curb Russian aggression. This has led to a diplomatic tug-of-war, with India defending its right to pursue its national interests. India fires back, calling out US hypocrisy. China and the EU buy more Russian energy, yet face no such penalties. This argument highlights the double standards in international diplomacy, where economic and political alliances often dictate the rules of engagement. India's stance is that it should not be penalized for actions that are commonplace among other major global players. The Indian government has been vocal about the need for a fair and equitable approach to international trade and sanctions. The question in New Delhi: why is India being singled out for acting in its own interest? This sentiment resonates deeply within the Indian political and business communities. There is a growing sense of frustration and injustice as India feels it is being unfairly targeted. The narrative in New Delhi is one of resilience and determination, with policymakers emphasizing the importance of maintaining sovereignty and economic independence. The debate is not just about trade, but about the broader principles of fairness and respect in international relations. Diplomatic relations freeze. A U.S. trade delegation cancels its visit. This cancellation is a significant setback, symbolizing the deepening rift between the two nations. It underscores the seriousness of the current standoff and the challenges ahead in mending the strained relations. The diplomatic freeze has implications beyond trade, affecting various aspects of bilateral cooperation, including defense, technology, and cultural exchanges. The path to reconciliation appears increasingly complex and fraught with obstacles. For India, the tariffs threaten growth and sovereignty, but the government refuses to buckle, citing its duty to 1.4 billion citizens. The Indian leadership is steadfast in its resolve to protect national interests and ensure economic stability. The message to the world is clear. India will not compromise on its principles and will continue to pursue policies that benefit its people. The government's stance is bolstered by widespread public support, as citizens rally behind the call for economic self-reliance and resilience. The standoff is now a test of wills, with neither side backing down. This impasse has become a defining moment in U.S.-India relations, with both nations standing firm on their positions. The negotiations are intense, with each side trying to leverage its strengths to gain an upper hand. The outcome of this standoff will have significant implications for the future of bilateral relations and the broader geopolitical landscape. The fallout is economic, political, and deeply personal for both nations. The trade war has led to market volatility, with businesses and investors on edge. The political ramifications are equally significant, as leaders on both sides face pressure to resolve the crisis. For ordinary citizens, the impact is felt in everyday life, from rising prices to job uncertainties. The situation is a stark reminder of how interconnected the global economy is, and how political decisions can have far-reaching consequences. The world watches as two giants dig in. The international community is closely monitoring the situation, aware that the outcome will set a precedent for future trade disputes. Global leaders are weighing in, offering mediation and urging both sides to find a resolution. The standoff has become a focal point in international diplomacy, highlighting the complexities of global trade and the need for cooperative solutions. As the world watches, the hope is for a peaceful and mutually beneficial resolution to this high-stakes conflict. As U.S. ties fray, India and Israel's partnership steps into the spotlight. Years of quiet cooperation now become a strategic pillar for New Delhi, especially in defense and technology. India turns to Israeli firms for drones, missile defense, and cybersecurity, deepening joint ventures in tech transfer. Intelligence sharing between RAW and Mossad grows vital, especially as U.S. overtures to Pakistan unsettle Indian policymakers. The reliability of Israeli intelligence and technology offers India stability amid shifting alliances. This partnership is pragmatic, not ideological, focused on results, not rhetoric. The US-India rift only accelerates India's drive for strategic autonomy. By strengthening ties with Israel, India builds resilience and safeguards its interests. Under mounting US pressure to reduce ties with Moscow, India has instead doubled down on Russian oil, which now accounts for a staggering 40% of its total crude imports. This dramatic shift has made Russia India's top energy supplier, overtaking traditional partners like Iraq and Saudi Arabia. The move is not just about economics. It's a calculated response to global turbulence, as India seeks to shield itself from volatile markets and unpredictable supply chains. Discounted Russian crude has become an economic lifeline for India, helping to tame inflation and keep fuel prices in check for millions. This affordable energy is crucial for a country where even small price hikes can ripple through the economy, affecting everything from transportation to food costs. By securing cheaper oil, India is fueling its rapid growth and supporting the aspirations of its vast population. To make the most of this opportunity, India is investing heavily in upgrading its refineries, ensuring they can efficiently process Russian crude. These upgrades signal a long-term commitment to this partnership, reflecting a strategic bet on continued cooperation with Moscow. Indian ministers have been clear: energy security is non-negotiable. They argue that India cannot be expected to enforce sanctions it did not help create, especially when other major economies continue to buy Russian energy. For New Delhi, the priority is keeping the lights on and the economy running. The relationship with Russia goes far beyond oil. Nearly 60% of India's military hardware is of Russian origin, and the country remains dependent on Moscow for spare parts, maintenance, and upgrades. This deep defense partnership has been built over decades and cannot be easily replaced. High-level visits to Moscow during the recent tariff crisis underscore India's resolve to maintain strong ties, even as global dynamics shift. These diplomatic missions are a clear message that India values its relationship with Russia and is willing to weather international criticism to protect its interests. Meanwhile, India's booming trade with Russia has brought it into closer economic proximity with China. However, this does not mean strategic alignment. India is careful to separate economic interests from broader geopolitical concerns, especially given its complex relationship with Beijing. New Delhi remains deeply wary of Beijing's ambitions in Asia. While it leverages Russian ties for energy and defense, India is equally focused on countering China's influence, both at its borders and across the region. For India, this energy pivot is about survival and self-reliance, not about shifting alliances or choosing sides in a new Cold War. The stakes are high for ordinary Indians whose daily lives depend on affordable and reliable energy. In a world of shifting alliances and great power rivalries, India walks a diplomatic tightrope, determined to protect its interests, maintain its independence, and ensure energy security for its people, no matter the geopolitical cost. US-India tensions force a tactical thaw with China, despite deep mistrust and border disputes. Modi's visit to the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit signals a pragmatic reset. Renewed border talks and resumed flights lower the temperature, while China lifts export controls on rare earths vital for Indian industry. Yet, strategic threats persist. China's ties with Pakistan, dam projects in Tibet, and military buildup along the border. India's trade deficit with China remains a sore point, fueling economic caution. The current détente is tactical, not a realignment. India stabilizes its frontier while weathering the US storm. It's a pause, not peace, in a long-term rivalry. The US-India fallout shakes South Asia as Washington cozies up to Islamabad. New US-Pakistan trade and energy deals, plus a White House welcome for Pakistan's military chief, unsettle New Delhi. Trump's claims of brokering an India-Pakistan ceasefire only deepen Indian mistrust. India responds by doubling down on its neighborhood-first policy, strengthening ties with Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, and the Maldives. The US pivot to Pakistan reinforces India's push for strategic autonomy and regional leadership. South Asia grows more fragmented and multipolar, with India determined to chart its own course. The region's power balance is in flux, and India is adapting fast. The trade war sparks a wave of consumer nationalism in India. Modi's call for Swadhi, buying Indian-made goods, resonates with a public angered by US tariffs. Brands like Dabur and Amul launch campaigns targeting American competitors, turning shopping into an act of patriotism. Supermarket aisles become battlegrounds as consumers choose local over foreign. This grassroots movement gives the government popular backing for its tough stance. While it risks protectionism, for now, it unites the nation. Indian consumers wield their purchasing power as a weapon in the economic standoff. The message: India will not be bullied. India's answer to the crisis is strategic autonomy, a modern evolution of its non-aligned tradition. The US rift validates this doctrine. India refuses to be locked into any single alliance. It remains active in the Quad, partners with Europe, and maintains ties with Russia and China, picking engagements that serve its interests. This multi-vector approach maximizes flexibility and sovereignty. India's foreign policy is pragmatic, not ideological, cooperating with the US on maritime security, buying Russian oil, and stabilizing borders with China. The goal to be a leading power, not a junior partner. Strategic autonomy is both shield and strategy in a turbulent world. India is determined to chart its own course. The US-India clash is more than a tariff dispute, it's a turning point in global power dynamics. India's defiance signals that emerging powers won't subordinate their interests to any superpower's agenda. The result, a multipolar world where alliances are fluid and transactional. America's punitive approach risks alienating key partners and undermining its Indo-Pacific strategy. Other nations take note, diversifying partnerships and hedging bets. India's choices, energy security, diversified defense, and refusal to pick sides, reflect a new global reality. The world is watching as India asserts itself as an independent pole. The future will be shaped by nations willing to chart their own destinies.